Okay, let me check the feeds here. I believe we're live, but I have to make sure it's going out to all the feeds. And it's sending data. Excellent. Good. I think we are live on most of the feeds so that your listeners or your followers will also find us. But welcome to Revolution Network. This is Dr. Jason Dean, your source for health, knowledge, and freedom. And I have a very special individual today, Mr. Blayne Lannan. Is that the correct pronunciation, sir?
Yes, it is.
Absolutely awesome. And yes, people are jumping on right now. People are excited to hear what you have to say today. Well, welcome to the network. I stumbled upon you probably within the last month, following on Twitter and seeing what everything was going on. Give everyone a little background on where you come from, your history, and how you kind of got into this movement of quote unquote the QAnons.
So it's my background. First of all, I grew up in Alaska. I joined the military when I was 18 years old. And in terms of military background, I spent some time in military intelligence, human intelligence gathering, on a long-range surveillance team. After I got out of the military the first time, went to college, got my degree, and then did some law enforcement. Worked in the courtroom for a while. Worked on a counter narcotics team. Did some fugitive apprehension work. So I've got a pretty diverse background in intelligence gathering and investigative type stuff. In terms of and I'll also mention that over the course of the years, I've gained a bunch of connections through my military. The people that I know in the military, I've gained a bunch of connections of people in the military. I have friends, long-term friends, in key places in the military. That I listen to. I'm not gonna say that they're feeding me any information by any stretch of the imagination, but through the course of this, there have been key times where I've gotten information, just in the past couple of years, that I've gotten information that validated and verified everything that we're saying. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
I'm trying to be kind of vague, man.
No, and you can be, and obviously, I don't want you to give up anything that would obviously be harmful to you or any issues like that. And you know what you can and can't do. And so, as much information we can get to them without breaching any of those lines, I am fine with. So I totally understand.
So in terms of my own awakening process, this started on July 1st, 2007 for me. And it's very multifaceted, but like we spoke yesterday, the very first thing that happened to me was I got really interested, and I was never interested in any of this stuff prior to July 1st, 2007. And literally overnight, I got this real insatiable desire to start looking into things. And the first thing that I looked into was 9/11. And I went down that road and learned everything that I could. And I also started connecting with other people that were also they felt like they were being led down those same paths. I will mention that I got a bunch of family in the military. My little brother is a West Point educated doctor. My ex-wife is a general officer, still on. Well, she's in the National Guard, but she's a career MI person too. So I've been around military intelligence my whole life.
Nice. So I have a question for you as we jump into this, and obviously we'll jump around to different things because we got the next half hour to an hour to go. But
yep.
You mentioned on something which was also my Great Awakening. So my Great Awakening was also 9/11, and I'm from New York, so I saw it go down the way it went down. I bought into the official story, and it wasn't until years later, after I thought Ron Paul was crazy. Literally, I thought he was crazy. I couldn't stand him. And then as I dove deep in and was willing to confront, and then I opened up, and 9/11 was my first one. I've talked to plenty of sources since then, and although I don't know exactly how everything went down, I know a lot of the details of what happened. Give us some of your background and what you know from a 9/11 standpoint, because a lot of people, that we are in such an amazing time right now. If you told me 8 weeks ago that I would be able to go live about 9/11 and people would listen to me, no, I was the crazy one still at that point. And we are 6 weeks into this, and people are actually ready to listen to this stuff. So you have an opportunity right now to drop some of the data you know about 9/11 and what actually occurred.
I'm going to give you an illustration of cognitive dissonance first.
Okay.
Um, Back in 2010, my brother was in Hawaii. It was before he got his before he became an MD. He was a special operator. So my little brother went to West Point, became an infantry officer, and then got into special forces. So he's got this huge background in special operations. And I sat down with him in his kitchen, and I pulled up a video of World Trade Center 7 imploding on its own footprint. And I sat him down in front of my laptop, and I said, Ford, look at this. Just look at it with an open mind. And he looked at it, and I said, what do you think happened? And he very calmly looked at me and he said, I think it was probably the result of the seismic activity resulting from the other buildings falling around that building that day.
Or not.
He's a brilliant kid. I love my
Yeah.
brother to death, but I looked at him and I'm like, no, I don't think so. And he's like, what are you saying, Blayne? Are you saying that our government did it? And I'm saying, I think that's probably exactly what happened. Not our government, because that's where people get hung up, man. It's not the government. It's a shadow government. It's people within the government operating in the dark, and that's where a lot of people get hung up. But I think that barrier is coming down.
Correct.
So for me personally, when I first started researching and digging, I watched all the films that everybody else watched, like the loose changes and stuff like that. And then I just used my ability to discern, man. And there's a lot of really good footage.
Mm-hmm.
The good footage beyond World Trade Center 7, and that should be enough all by itself, because that building wasn't touched by anything. It had some surface fires. Furniture burning, things like that. None of that is going to create an environment that's going to create an environment where something is going to implode on its own footprint.
Right.
That defies physics, and for me it defied logic. And the same thing with World Trade Center 1 and World Trade Center number 2. If you look at the footage, you can actually see squibs, and a squib is a small explosion. You can see squibs coming all the way down those buildings as they come down. It was clearly, and then as I investigated and I started connecting the dots, another big one for me was the security for that building for months leading up to 9/11. One of the Bush brothers was in charge of security.
Right.
I think it took months to rig all those buildings. I think it was done very meticulously, and it had been planned for years.
Why would they do that? A lot of people ask why, because the first problem is most people don't think that inside government or the deep state or whatever you want to call it would do that, first of all. But the real question is why. Now, I have new reasons why, but I'd love to hear from you why you think that they had to do that, because it's very possible that the Great Awakening, they wanted to go down before that, but this was obviously a massive false flag that threw the world in turmoil, almost like we have today with the pandemic.
Well, one of the methods of control has always been war. We know that these people, they're multi-trillionaires. That's their game. Their game is banking, finance, and war. And they've orchestrated armed conflict since the Civil War, if not before. And that's why they would do it. And I believe that's why they did it. They needed a new Pearl Harbor. They needed something. They needed an event that would get the country behind it to go to war and do the things that we've done for the past 2 decades.
Right, and it's interesting because what happens most of the time is people think, well, there's 3,000 lives lost. Why would they do that? And unfortunately, and I say this very sensitively, is 3,000 people to them, because keep in mind, the deep state doesn't look at people like we look at people. We look at people like a spiritual being, a soul who has a purpose.
Yes.
And yes, we have a body here on this planet, but obviously we're an energy within us. They don't look at that. They look at it basically as dumb animals. And so to them, 3,000 people is like it's nothing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say that these people are the kind of people that would put a bullet in your head and have lunch next to your body,
which is
and not even think about it. 4,000 people to these people is nothing.
Now, did you see that in your military time? Did you see? Obviously, your awakening was in 2017, but did you get signs of this when you were in the military? Because how does our military think today?
I think our military today is waking up. I think our military today is fully awake.
Interesting. You think that they've realized that they were pawns in a game?
I think 22 suicides a day is a shining example of that.
Yeah, tell us about that. You know some information about that.
Well, I think for a service member that has done the things that they've done, once you wake up and you start to realize what's really going on, that's hard to mitigate for people.
That makes sense. Now, as we dive deeper, so that's obviously one false flag. They create false flags all the time. It's constant. As you were waking up and talking to your military brethren, and as we dive into this whole Q phenomenon, the Great Awakening, what do your military friends talk about? What do they think? Are they also following in this, or is it kind of just a fringe thing that just us are following?
No, I wouldn't say it's fringe at all in the military.
Really?
No, and I've been out of the military for a while, but I still have connections and I still talk to dudes in the military and dudes out of the military. I would say they're very aware of what's going on.
Interesting. And so
they're not only are they aware, but they're very behind what's going on.
Got it. That makes sense. And yeah, so my understanding, and obviously I have no direct knowledge of this, but my understanding from several different sources that I've read, and these sources are not just fringe websites or blogs, it's actually going to people who are in the know, is that basically the President of the United States was asked to come on board to carry this aspect out. Because quite honestly, between the last who I consider a great president, and when I look at presidents, I don't look at Democrat or Republican. I look at who was trying to get something done, because that's really how it should work. Was John F. Kennedy was trying to get something done in this country. He was trying to put power back into the people. He was obviously assassinated for many reasons. One, because of the Federal Reserve, but then Trump was friends with Kennedy Jr. John F. Kennedy Jr. was known to have his mother told him who took his father out, and he said, "I will get revenge." So the sources then say that potentially President Trump was brought on for this project. Tell us a little bit about what you know on that.
So I think I have a pretty clear understanding and a good working knowledge of how operationally how it happened. There was a coup plan, because this has been known for a long time. And let's go back to the Obama era but let's go back to his administration. Obama gutted the military. He got rid of a whole bunch of senior, like 2, 3 star generals, admirals. He was gutting it. He was going after the people that were finally figuring out what was going on. And I don't know if I want to say people that were finally figuring out what was going on. There was there was a lot of forward progress being made to get rid of these people. Didn't start yesterday.
Right.
This operation has been ongoing for years, multiple decades. So originally the plan, at least from my understanding, was a complete full military coup. That would have resulted in a ton of death. Trump was approached by the military, and he said yes. Why he said yes, or I don't know. The guy's a multi-billionaire. It's not something he needed to do. I think he's a great patriot, and he also was clean as a whistle. They've been trying to find stuff on that man for years, and they can't. Uh, he also didn't join their club. He had no interest in being in their sick club, and I think that's what a lot of Americans don't understand too. Is this has never been about Republican versus Democrat. The Republican versus Democrat paradigm was designed to keep you and I at each other's throats, thinking that it was our fault, or if I'm a Republican, it's a Democratic issue. If people would just vote Republican, everything would be taken care of. That's never been the issue. Uh, the deep state is nonpartisan. They have their own agenda. And you're right. Every president from JFK has been in these people's pockets, and that happens by a bunch of means. People get compromised by doing bad things and getting videotaped, or they get blackmailed, or both. But yes, every president since JFK up until this man has been dirty, and so what we're seeing right now is a house cleaning, a huge house cleaning.
Yeah, it's interesting too because we talk about house cleaning, and we are a society now where we expect things like now, like we want something. We've been trained and controlled into an immediate society. If something doesn't work, if the internet's not going fast enough, we want it now. And it's so funny because Q, as I've understood it and studied it, never said any timeline, never said a date, never said, because obviously that would screw up the whole plan. It's actually people who've been researching that, who've been putting dates out. But if we think that they're gonna destroy again a 6,000 plus year quote unquote satanic god awful cult in like a month, that's not going to occur. It takes a lot longer to do that. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, the whole idea, the reason that a coup never went down was to mitigate and minimize death to the American people. And I think our president and our military and the DIA and the NSA and everybody else involved in this is going to mitigate and minimize risk to the smallest degree before anything major starts happening. And that may mislead people too. There's lots of stuff happening. There's lots of stuff happening every day. It's not publicized. It's not in the media because it's not the time for that yet.
Right now,
that would be counterproductive for that until risk is mitigated and minimized. And I'll speak to that a little bit too. I hear that all the time, every day. Why aren't things happening? Why aren't mass arrests happening? I trust that if risk was mitigated and minimized so that we, the people, couldn't get harmed, that would happen. And I think the day that happens, it will happen.
Yeah,
I think I think we're moving close to that rapidly right now with what's going on.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It's interesting because we brought up earlier regarding the Obama and the different things that were going on and the destruction of the military, et cetera. And President Trump has said over and over again that he's had to rebuild it to its strength to become, again, national defense, not to go around the world and take over different countries. But it's interesting because, and I've talked about this previously, and you can talk about this too because I know how much you absolutely love her, and I'm being sarcastic, is there was a 16-year plan in place. The 16-year plan was Obama 8 years and then Hillary 8 years, and obviously they never expected her to lose. And for anybody who thinks that this is like just a game and that President Trump is just part of the problem and it's just kind of another, again, two going back and forth, you can tell based on the night that he won the election, the media was completely caught off guard. Hillary Clinton never actually gave a concession speech because she was completely caught off guard. But she was the second part of that 16-year plan. And if she was in office right now, we right now would not be the same America.
Oh, no way.
And talk to her, because not to her, but basically your feelings behind her, the military feelings behind her, because I've heard sources from behind, whether it was Secret Service or actually military, how much they despised her.
Oh, she was, and I think people are waking up to her rapidly right now, and that's amazing. It's amazing to see. Hillary Rodham Clinton has a trail of death that goes back to Watergate. If she would have won, we would have. I think we would be living in a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland right now, because that was a plan. The plan was thermonuclear war with North Korea, because Korea was always a deep state stronghold. The Kim family never owned that country. The Kim family was held hostage by the deep state. And that was the plan. The plan was for us to go to war with North Korea. I don't know if you remember, but during the last part of the Obama administration, the FEMA camps and all the coffins and all the rounds of ammo that DHS was procuring and all that stuff had a purpose, man.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff had a plan.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the FEMA camps, because so many people ask this, and I was studying this for, 10 plus years before all this went down. And I remember being in the camp where I was like, oh my God, they're building the FEMA camps and those are going to be for us. And quite honestly, I was focused on these are going to be for us. And I kind of went off the whole conspiracy platform there for a while just because I got busy and everything else. And then all of a sudden this happened and everyone started freaking out. And even some of the media channels out there who are more holistic health, natural media channels, who even the Alex Jones of the world, who are still preaching, they're coming for you, that's what the FEMA camp's for. And I went, wait a second, no, something changed in the air. Something feels different this time. Like the energy shifted, even though this pandemic's been a pain in the butt. Something shifted though, because you can feel that there is a storm brewing. And I personally, myself, I don't feel in danger anymore. I feel like something is going on behind the scenes that is they're in danger for now.
Yep.
Can you talk to that, because the FEMA camp and Hillary and all that and that different stuff, because you saw it. I mean, you knew what was going on. I think all you have to do is go back and listen to Trump's speeches very early on, and the language he was using about replacing these people. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
And I don't think anything comes out of Trump's mouth that doesn't have purpose. Everything that he's said since day one, he's done. Everything that he said about replacing a corrupt organization, he's doing. And I think you're right. I think a lot of Americans are feeling a sense of relief right now because they see stuff happening. There's this coronavirus thing is kind of scary. The jury's still out for me on what that's all about. There's a lot of conspiracy theory type stuff behind that too. I don't know.
Sure.
But I would agree with you that the energy has shifted a lot, and just in the past month, man, just since people have had a chance to slow down and take a break, I think it's shifted up even a little bit higher, if that makes sense.
No, I would agree. It's so funny. I actually feel like I think it was about a month ago. We were sitting in my front yard actually, which I'm not usually in my front yard, and my wife and my daughter are sitting there, and we're used to traveling a lot. We fly different places for seminars in our careers and everything, and obviously we've been down, so we're just kind of hanging out and. People are walking by with their dogs, and there's different people, neighbors are out in their yard. And I live in a really pretty quiet conservative community. And I looked at her and I said, I feel like I've been transported back to like almost when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, the early 90s though, not like late 90s and 2000s where it started getting crazy. But I feel like we're in like Mayberry again, where we're like people are becoming family oriented. People are connecting again. Husbands and wives are talking to each other. They look at their kids again. I actually feel a sense of calm because it really feels like we've shifted back into a different time when kind of like America was not fully enslaved at that point, but at least we still had that structure together. Could you talk to that?
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I think. Well, I think I always call it the agenda. I think part of the agenda was always to disconnect us. Um, that's a method of control. Um, Food, medicine, uh, air, water, all those things are methods to manipulate and control and make people sick, make people healthy, whatever. But I think as human beings, we, for a large degree, because of the schedules we're under, and because of everything that goes on during the day to day, we've lost connection with one another and the planet. And I think we're reconnecting with each other, and we're reconnecting with purpose, and we're reconnecting with the planet for sure. I feel that. I think a lot of people are feeling that, and on Twitter, I hear people and see people talking about it all the time.
Interesting. And you mentioned something earlier back into the geopolitical aspect is something funny because you just said it, and I kind of had like a whole revelation on it was whatever it was 2 years ago or 1 year ago when President Trump went over to Korea, and he was actually working with Kim Jong Un at the time, who at
Yeah,
that point they went across the DMZ, and it was like the media collectively lost their minds. And the funny part
yeah,
was is what you said is the Kim dynasty actually hasn't been in control. It's been the deep state in control of that country. And I realized I'm like, oh my God, he didn't go over there to keep peace. He probably went over there to shut down this part and actually give them their country back. And that's why he was able to walk across that border because they're actually getting control of all these countries that were considered to be slave countries. How many
yeah.
countries, honestly, do you think we have under this deep state control at this point, or had, I guess you'd say?
I would say that any country that had centralized banking installed um, is deep state controlled. If you control the finances, you control a country.
Right.
And the military industrial complex, um, the old guard military, um, that was one of their purposes, man. Uh, and we did it to a bunch of different countries. Libya, well, all throughout the Middle East. There's a really good book. I can't remember the guy's name. Uh,
Is it Perkins?
I can't. It'll come to me, man.
Okay.
Confessions of a Deep.
Yeah.
I,
Confessions of
yeah,
an Economic Hitman.
exactly. A great book talks about how the CIA goes in and basically tells them that if you don't conceive, we'll just go ahead and come in and take your country over and install it for you. And that's what we've done throughout history. The U.S. military was used as a terror arm for the deep state. That was the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
Washington D.C. and the Pentagon. That was their purpose in all this.
Yeah.
They were the terror arm. We
It's
were the terror arm.
It's interesting. I don't know if people realize this, but the actual mode of control is Washington D.C. is the military with the
Yep.
Pentagon. The Vatican is the religious control,
Yep.
and Buckminster Abbey, or I guess you'd say the UK, is the actual
House of
financial.
Windsor.
It's the House of Windsor is the financial control. Do you
Yep.
see all three of these toppling? Because if if all three of those
They're done.
topple, if all of three of those topple, dude, do you realize the awakening that will occur that people have no idea that those three control the planet?
That was the control mechanism. The Vatican, and you hit it. You hit all three spot on. And I would say that those three have toppled.
Wow, that's
I
crazy.
would say that the military is no longer deep state controlled. The military has been freed from that. I would say that the Vatican is done. Um, and I would say that the House of Windsor is done too. And there's lots of evidence. Uh, some you have to dig for, but some is super overt that that's happened. It's happening.
That to me is
It's huge.
is mind blowing because again there's so many layers deep to this great awakening, and I think if and I've told the viewers that are all watching right now and listening is that so many people think this is just a political thing going on. No, this is literally a great awakening. This is planetary, meaning like there is actually a planetary neighborhood out there, which I won't go down that rabbit hole right
Yeah.
now. But
Now,
this is not just a medical industrial complex and military industrial complex. This is literally planetary, and people have no idea how deep it goes.
yeah.
And then human trafficking. I mean, can you speak to some of the things you've seen or know about in the human sex trafficking world of people don't know what's actually going on. We know that people now there's tunnels, there's dumbs down there, but people don't realize that is literally the economy of it. Oh, I think I lost him. Yep, there you are. You're back.
I had a call that came through.
No problem.
So let's talk about QAnon.
Okay.
And I'll cover some of that. So when I woke up in 2007, I spent a good 7 years researching everything. Like it was my life. And then about 2000, I want to say 2016, 2017, I put it all down. And we talked about this briefly yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, it came to a point of I got tired of being called nuts. I got tired of trying to have conversations with family members or friends and then look at you like you have something in the middle of your forehead, right? So I took a break from it. And just over about a year and a half ago, it was November of 2018, I flew down to Florida to visit a girlfriend. And this is really interesting. And this is another rabbit hole that we can talk about if you want. Went down to St. Augustine. And I'd never been to, I had been to Florida one time when my son was like 5 years old. But anyway, so we went down to St. Augustine. We spent some days there. And I went to the Fountain of Youth. Got to hang out at the Fountain of Youth for an afternoon. And flew back to Seattle a couple days later. And I was on the flight back to Washington. And I had my Facebook pulled up. And I was just scrolling through some stuff. And one of my military buddies, who was also awake, he sent me a link to the adrenochrome thing, and I started reading through what adrenochrome is and how it's synthesized and all that, and in that instant, like the whole Fountain of Youth, that synchronicity became real clear to me. So when that happened, he sent me the link to Q, and he said, "You need to check this out." He said, "I've been following this guy or this collective for the past couple months, and I think you would be really interested in it." So I started looking at it, and that was November 2018. Um, I think that I think that what I personally think QAnon is a back channel to the NSA, to the DIA, to the military, and to the president, in order for them to communicate with us what's going on as much as they can, uh, without looking for the right word, without putting anybody in danger or at risk, or without endangering national security. Does that make sense?
No, totally. It's one of those things where, so obviously, you and I have been down the crazy road before with this whole thing, not together necessarily, but our own worlds. And so
Yeah.
the whole crazy term and conspiracy term is totally a button that doesn't work for me anymore because I know what it is. But
Yep.
I look at it like this because it's so funny. You get trolls and haters who are like, "Oh, well, it's a psyop. It's a psyop." And as we talked about yesterday, you're right. It is a psyop. It's a psychological operation. Now, if you think it's a psyop to confuse and lead the whole country and the whole world into a new world order, well, guess what? There's really only probably max maybe a million or so people or less that actually focus and study on this on a daily basis. There might
Yeah.
be a larger population who knows about it, but they're not researching in that study. They just heard about it. And if you think that there's a negative psyop that's only going after a 500,000 to a million people who actually study it on a daily basis, that's not a big enough population for them. They need more people to be under mind control. So I've
Yeah.
just heard too much. Plus, I know a couple people who actually are connected directly to the President of the United States. And when I talk
Yeah.
to them, I get the same thing back from every single one of them. He is totally in tune. He knows what's going on. He has it under control, and we will win this game.
Yep.
So I think it's interesting from that standpoint. So you're right in how you look at that.
My military intelligence background, all I had to do was look at the language and look at what they were doing and what they were telling us to realize that it was exactly what they say it is.
Right, that makes sense. And now,
I think,
yeah,
I,
go ahead.
I think anybody with a military background or a military intelligence background or a law enforcement background look at Q operationally and what the information that they're trying to disseminate to us, to wake us up. I don't think you could call it anything else.
And let me add some layers onto that as we kind of wind this thing down. Now, question for you. One of the things that actually makes me also feel very good about this thing is, one, Hillary Clinton was never elected president, and that to me is such a gigantic thing, because we know how much they wanted her, but also is I think if this was to take us down as a whole planet and as a country, I believe they would have got rid of the Second Amendment before they did that. And they don't want blood in the streets. They don't want us all rising up and going to war with our guns at home. So does that cross your mind as well, the fact that the Second Amendment is still, very, very solidly in place?
They've been trying to take our guns away for years. They've been trying to, through false flag terrorism, they've been trying to take our weapons for years. I don't think it will ever happen in this country.
And that's one of the things that protects us, is that we have that. And let me tell you, gun sales and ammo sales are through the roof right now. And I will tell you, I don't think, and you can back me up on this if you want to or not, I don't think the military or law enforcement, who both report to the Constitution, I don't think they would turn on us. Do you?
You know, I've always said that I don't think any of my brothers in the military would ever disarm citizens. I don't think law enforcement would disarm citizens. Some of the stuff that I'm seeing lately with the coronavirus and people putting the handcuffs on moms for playing baseball with their kids, that's a little concerning, man. I think there might be some stragglers, but I think the good people in the military and the good people in law enforcement would pick those folks up by their bootstraps real quick. I think they would be taken care of real quick.
I would agree. What would you say, as we finish this off? what would you say your consensus is amongst the military and especially your friends as this all plays out? Like, what is their mindset?
I think everybody just wants it done. I think everybody's exhausted. Uh, I think the news that we got yesterday with General Flynn being exonerated, um, I I think some very good things could start happening. I think that needed to happen first before we could start taking care of some other things. If that
Uh,
makes sense.
no, I would totally agree. I think that was massive, and we talked before we jumped on today. Was a lot a lot of people said, well, what if it doesn't happen? And I said, well, Maria, the Fox News anchor who actually dropped that tweet yesterday, that's who Q actually referenced to in the drop. Um, she has her own show. She is within like the last one of the last dinners they had at the White House where there was a correspondence dinner, I think it was. She was most notably there next to the president of the United States. Like she is in deep within the
Circle.
within the circle, and so she. Let me tell you, a Fox News anchor or any media news anchor at that level is not going to just drop a tweet if something isn't going down. Because their career's on the line. Their all of their authority is on the line. They're not going to say something that then doesn't just happen.
Yeah, I find it really interesting and funny. Q QAnon debunkers. There there's been so many proofs. The time for proofs was, at least for me, was within the first 2 days that I started reading his stuff, their stuff.
Interesting, very fascinating. Um, as we go forward in the next, I'd say anywhere from 6 months to a couple years down the road, what do you see playing out based on what we're looking at right now, whether it comes to the whole thing, just human trafficking, the cabal, whatever it is? What do you see playing out over the next 6 months to a couple years as this unfolds?
Ooh, that's big, man.
I know.
Uh, Human trafficking, human and sex trafficking ending. Uh, I'm hopeful that the drug trade will end. I'm hopeful that people that have been horribly addicted in our country will get help. I'm talking like mass events, and that's another thing too, man. The drug trade, uh, the wall, and all that stuff. People don't realize how much dope comes over that wall, or how much dope comes up through that border. And 99% of the heroin and methamphetamine in our streets right now, that's all Mexican mafia product. There's a reason why he's building that wall. So I hope to see that end. Um, I would like to see cures be released, for sure. I would like to, for us finally to be able to get some knowledge about what's good food, what's not good food, what's good medicine, what's not good medicine, and get the truth about that. Not biased research paid for by a Rockefeller-controlled medical establishment, right? Um, Free energy technology, the truth about the different things that have happened throughout the years, 9/11, John F. Kennedy assassination, those things that have been pivotal times in our history. I see the truth coming out about all that, and some transparency in government moving forward. Um, Full takedown of the deep state, which means up to 2/3 of DC level politicians being in prison or worse. That's my hope. And it's not Republican or Democrat. The people I'm talking about are people that have been bought out or that have done bad things and been compromised. Either way, anybody that's been on the deep state payroll, those people are gone. And a new government of the people, by the people, and for the people being established in this country.
Those are beautiful words, man. That's where I would end it. That's exactly what we all want to see. I appreciate your time today. We will talk again because you have a bit of a story even before this, and I would love people to go over that as well. The fact that I'll give you a little teaser, but Blayne has had his issues in life from a substance standpoint, and he knows the drug world very well and how much it's damaged America and its citizens. And so, at some other point in the next maybe couple weeks or so, I'd love to bring you back on. We'll actually talk about that and give people
I would
hope.
love that.
There are so many people out there. I've been personally, through my family, been touched on by that as well, very, very personally. And so I see it as well as a physician. And so we'd love to go over that with you and give some people some hope. But I appreciate your time, man. Go ahead. You're going to say something.
I think that would be awesome, and I would be honored to do that.
Absolutely. Where can everyone find you out there? Because you're going to have some new followers who want to hear your information. Where can they get you?
I'm on Twitter all the time, and I do my best to connect with anybody that wants to connect. I think I'm going to start blogging again. When I first woke up, I blogged a ton. I'll probably drop those links at some point and maybe start blogging again because I think it's important. And that's something else I'll say as I close too, man. I think we collectively, I think it's our job. I think it's our time and our purpose for us to help wake other people up. Sometimes I'm not so gentle in my methods doing that.
It's okay.
But I think it's super important, and I think we all have a voice, and I think we all need to be heard.
I would 100% agree. We will actually drop his Twitter handle as a link, so check that out. Go look it up. It's Blayne Lannan, and he has been amazing. And the one thing honestly that I have loved about you is not only that you are dropping good knowledge, but you're actually dropping it insensitively. And when I say that, I don't mean you're being insensitive. It's more of the truth is not easy to look at. And if you think you're going to walk into the truth by just going, oh, look, there's a bunny rabbit over there. Oh, that's interesting. That's something No, it is very hard to look at. And sometimes that comes with words that we don't use every day because we have to amplify the fact that if we really wake up as a country, you're going to see some things that we're not comfortable to look at.
Oh no. There's a lot of icky, sick, uncomfortable stuff. I've seen a lot of it. We're going to have the opportunity. Anybody that wants to look at it is going to have the opportunity to look at it. Yeah, I think history books are going to be rewritten within a couple of years, man.
I would agree. I thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate it. I will be in touch with you behind the scenes as always. Now we're in this together, and we will wake as many people up as we possibly can. But thank you for being on the show today, sir. I appreciate your service and your time.
Thanks, Dr. Dean. Have a good day.
Absolutely. Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network, signing off for today, and I will be live again tonight at 9:30, so don't think this is the only time I'm coming on. But thank you, Blayne, for giving us tons of information. You guys have an amazing day. Take care of yourself. Keep waking up, and let's push this country and this planet forward. Take care. Bye-bye.